In your book, you talk about going to Africa and visiting the Hadza tribe. And I'm curious, when you went to do that, were you looking at the microbiome of those people at all?
We were. So we're working with a group of us. We're working on the gut microbiome and produced some papers on this because they've been studied before I'd got there. And we knew from some of the work there that they had this very rich microbiome. And we also did some, they have twice as many microbes as we do and very different profiles. So it looks like we've lost the ones that they still have. And it was very interesting to look at the differences between Western societies and those ones. And generally, they just had super healthy gut microbes that we were all very jealous of. And we also did some other testing there, looking at their biological ages, and showed generally that they didn't often know their ages, but when we were guessing what their ages were, their biological age was really doing pretty well. And we found that there's a pretty good correlation between biological age and your microbiome. So it was, we were doing those tests, and I was actually testing my own microbes as I was living with them for several days, eating their food, going off walking, hunting with them, and with no 5-star showers at the end of the day. It was interesting. I did manage to increase my microbial diversity by about 30% in that short while I was there, but it was short-lived. As soon as I got back on the plane and ate that airplane food, I think it regressed back by the time I got to London. But it was an interesting journey to see how, with their variety and their lifestyle, maybe not just the food they're eating, but also surrounded by the dirt and the animals, and being in the open air all the time in a non-sterile environment was obviously very helpful to our ancestors.
Talk more about what a typical day would look like. What time would you get up, and take us through what a day looked like?
Well, it's equatorial Africa, so it was, it's sort of 6:30 in the morning till 6:30 at night, dawn and dusk. And you generally slept in a little bit until it got too hot. So you get up about 7:30 and walk around and chat. And interesting, there was none of the Hadza were interested in the concept of breakfast. They would just maybe get out of the river or something and splash their faces and get ready and start very, very slowly working up. And we asked them, I said, where's breakfast? They didn't have a word for breakfast. So it was, so we want breakfast, well, just, grab some berries. And at about 10 or 11, women did actually get some baobabs, which were lying all over the place, and crunched them into a porridge, which was like a delicious drink full of fiber. So they tended to have that about 11 o'clock. And then, women and men would separate, go their very different lives. Men do. We were at a time when it was the dry season, so actually it was quite easy to get game because they all went to the same water hole, and it was very easy to kill the game. So they didn't have a problem with meat at that time. There was plenty of it, and so they were all feeling very comfortable. And the women would collect tubers, so they'd just go out, tap a bit on the ground, and with a pointy stick, just dig up these amazing tubers, a bit like sweet potatoes or yams, and then spend the next 3 hours chatting with their kids, roasting these things on the fire. And some of the men would go out and pick berries off trees, just they wanted to walk. And they were really abundant. And these are really tiny little berries, very quite sour without the sweetness, but they had a great flavour to them and big variety. You come up with 5 different types in your hand, and just it's like a giant supermarket. This place, and you'd find these kids coming back with little birds and things that they'd kill with bows and arrows. It was. I was shocked how easy it was to get food. I mean, I think that's the one thing that surprised me totally. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be, doing 20 kilometer fast walks every day just to get, one tiny squirrel or something, and I would be ecstatic. But no, it was easy, and they're also into their honey, and so when someone finds honey, the whole tribe drop everything, whatever they're doing, even hunting. They're just about to get some big game. They go and they go to the tree where they found the honey, and the whole group of 50 people are there helping and sharing that honey. So it was, yes, my impression was of sort of abundant food, very relaxed idea, no concept of breakfast, ultimate sharing. Everything got shared out in a very sociable, amenable way. No one ate first. And so it was, that was very much this social bond was all around food and about the fire and the barbecue. Everything was barbecued. There was no microwaves or even much in the way of kitchen utensils. It was, you had a knife, you skinned whatever it was, stuck it on the barbecue, had it, with the yams, and that's what they liked to do. And they sat around chatting for hours. Then they'd go to, when it was dark, wait till the embers of the fire went out, and generally they rolled up a blanket and either slept by the fire or in small huts, and they slept really well for 7.5 hours, and they had a pretty good life, and that's the life of our ancestors, really, and not an overweight one amongst them, and they all look pretty fit, because by the time they've got there, a lot of the kids, it's the kids who die off, but if they make it to adulthood, they're super fit and healthy, and they live without diabetes, cancer, allergies, autoimmune diseases, all this kind of stuff. So it was, very privileged to have seen that.
That must have been such a life-changing experience. How long ago was that, Tim?
It was about 5 years ago, I think. It was quite remarkable, and I remember going with a very seasoned BBC journalist, Dan Saladino, and for him it was very much a life-changing moment. And he'd been around the world, covering food stories, but it's like you're just watching your past. It's like having a time machine in a way.
And are they pretty welcoming to Westerners coming over and visiting?
They are. I mean, they're quite shy, but they're used to researchers doing this. They don't really understand it, but as long as they're trading something, they're super friendly, and they're not aggressive. So they know that the foreigners are sort of keeping their land safe for them against the pastoralists who just want to cut down all the trees and graze their cattle. So they were really cool. I mean, but there's only a few thousand left.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
So it does mean a little bit of education about our bodies and, this new organ that's suddenly come into our lives, which we didn't know 10 years ago really was there, that all of us have.